you playing?
Greetings and welcome to What the Bleep Are You Playing? A podcast where we play a game, many times bad, and tell you why the bleep we played it. I'm Shawn, and I brought a turtle to a rabbit fight. I'm here with Thomas, who ordered a hottie, and this is Mason. Violence is never the solution. Now stop hitting the RV and go beat up those enemies. So how you guys doing?
I know those contexts. The audience might not.
We played Ben 10, Protector of Earth.
We did. And
I know nothing about Ben 10.
This is going to be like a complete opposite of the WWE episode because I know everything. Shawn knows nothing.
Oh, don't worry, we're doing Dragon Ball next week. So.
Oh, that's there's going to be a nice balance.
I'm ironically in the middle of both of those because I know a lot about Dragon Ball, not as much as Shawn, and I know stuff about Ben 10, not as much as Mason. So, look, I'm into proper shit. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go look up Sonic the Hedgehog more.
No, you guys don't understand. Ben 10 was it was my world growing up. I had all the toys. I had some of the DVDs. I had an Omnitrix wrist toy that I wore everywhere. There's somewhere in my house. There's a picture that we have where we went to the zoo and Santa was there and we got pictures with Santa and I'm wearing the Omnitrix. I wore that bitch everywhere.
That definitely fits your age range. By the time Ben 10 was hitting popularity, I was watching Adult Swim. So
fair enough.
If I was watching Cartoon Network, it was Adult Swim. So.
And the thing is, I think by the time...
And not for Family Guy, for anime.
I think by the time that I was, like, conscious enough to, like, understand cartoons, I think Ben 10 had already finished and it was going through reruns. Mm-hmm. That's how I was watching it.
See, I did watch it live. I was there. I was one of the thousands of little children who watched the premiere live. And I did follow Ben 10 up until, I want to say, Ultimate Alien, which is the third series / season, and that's when I dropped it.
That's
I was, and not that I wanted to, because honestly I was still into it, but that was when we got rid of cable, and I just I just didn't care enough to like follow up on it.
I'd kind of dropped Cartoon Network pretty consistently. It said if I was watching cartoons in the, it was, whatever the dumb shit that would be on, or to quickly watch something quickly. So I think the last cartoon on Cartoon Network that like I obsessed over, and I say obsessed loosely, but like watched alive in the first like bunch of it would have been when Samurai Jack premiered.
That's fair.
Which would have been years before. I think that's the last one, which before.
See,
so.
Ben 10, I believe, was 2005.
2005
is
when the first Ben 10 series came out.
Yeah.
The original,
I want to
OG,
say
the best one.
I want to say I was like 7.
I was
whatever.
A senior in high school.
We get it. You're
and
fucking
I
old.
was 2.
Son of a bitch. So I was the perfect age range.
Yeah, like, you would have been right in it.
Because I was right there. I don't want to say I was as obsessed as Mason because I didn't have all the toys. I think I had a few, but I didn't have just all of them. I think I had a Diamond Head, which is not in this game, so Shawn's like, who the fuck? But I think that was the one I remember.
Monster
having.
Alien do.
You remember at one point you were fighting those like crystal bear things?
I hated them.
Yes, Ben can turn into basically a humanoid diamond creature that has the same abilities.
I hate him.
Ah, damn.
Because I hate those bears.
What was wrong with the bears? They're easy.
We did not have the same game experience.
I think we established that.
I mean, if you're fighting them as the right alien, yeah.
We had very different experiences with this game. I will say that.
Because so the whole reason this was my game, this is the one that if you didn't pick up on that already, this was the game that I chose, and the reason I picked this one is because it wasn't the first game I ever played, but it was the first game I ever completed, that I ever beat the main story of. So for that reason,
was it a Wii game you played back in the...
It wasn't the Wii version, it was the PS2 version.
Okay.
Was the one that I played.
For this podcast, Thomas and I played the PS2 version, you played the Wii version.
I played the Wii version, which It didn't look as good as the PS2 version. I think the PS2 version looked better.
I honestly am actually interested, and maybe we'll do if we bring Ben 10 back and do this same game, I'd like to play the Nintendo DS version, because I've heard it's the best version.
Look, if we're going to do another Ben 10 game, this is the second Ben 10 game ever made. If we're going to do a Ben 10 game again, we obviously have to do the first one ever made, which is for the Mattel Hyperscan.
Amazing.
Yeah, I played it on the Wii, which was a little bit difficult for me because I was used to PS2 controls, and the way you control it with the Wii is that it's with the nunchuck and the Wii remote. So getting the grips with the Wii controls was a little bit frustrating at first.
Oh, weird! A frustrating game with the Wii nunchuck. That never has happened.
It's because there were motion controls.
There were motion controls. They're not required though. Everything you can do either with the motion controls or just with button presses, which was far easier.
Well,
So
let
that's
me
how I
read from the internet, from Wikipedia, and we'll tell you about those motion controls.
Fun.
Ben 10 Protector of Earth is an action-adventure video game developed by High Voltage Software and published by D3 Publisher, and is based on the series, animated television series Ben 10. Surprise.
Oh, shit, really?
No, I thought this was an Adventure Time game. Damn it.
This is the second Ben 10 game, and it was released for the PSP, the PlayStation 2, the Nintendo DS, and then in 2007, the Wii. So it was released a little bit earlier for the other ones. They all came out as just the Wii. It was still in its launch cycle.
You brought up the graphics. You brought up Samurai Jack. I'm going to kind of combine those two. Did the graphics remind anyone else of that Samurai Jack game for the PS2?
Yes, that has been ported over to the PlayStation 4, and I have it.
Wait, it was ported?
They Limited Run Games did a port of it.
Are you fucking real?
I have it.
God damn it.
It's a good game. But yes, it did kind of remind me of it, very similar. A lot of the Cartoon Network games at the time kind of did the cel-shaded look.
That's fair.
I think with what was probably the limited budget that they had, they did a great job with the art style in this game, I think.
Outside of whatever they decided to do with the mouths.
The mouths are weird.
The mouths are weird.
Art's fine. The art's fine. It's kind of... It's a little bland in parts, but overall, art was really, really good.
Again,
for what they were trying to do.
PS2 came from a studio that puts out like fucking 20 games a year or whatever. High Voltage puts out so fucking much.
They did a lot of games. The Wii, the PlayStation 2, and the PSP versions all are basically identical to each other. They're played in three-dimensional environments. A second player can join in co-op mode. More on that here in a little bit, because I will talk my complaints on this game, because that's where it came from. The Wii version utilizes motion controls, such as simple flicks of the Wii Remote and nunchuck to perform attacks, and pointing the Wii Remote at on-screen targets to execute QuickTime events.
What was really frustrating, well, it wasn't really frustrating, it was actually kind of funny, is that I forgot the motion controls were a thing, so if I was like playing and I kind of had to like move my hair out of my face, or like I had like an itch on my face or something, the character would move while I was doing that because I still had the remote in my hand. I was like, no, I didn't want to do that.
And unlike the previous three versions, the Nintendo DS version is a side-scrolling 2.5D beat-em-up in which players can use the touchscreen to operate the Omnitrix, switching between available forms.
That doesn't surprise me, because
it fits the DS very, very much.
The really funny thing is that I watched a little bit of the DS gameplay. I know I haven't had the chance to actually play myself, but I watched like a little bit of gameplay from it, and by God, they tried so hard to translate so much from the console versions. Like even like all of the same fighting moves that you can do in the console versions you can do on the DS. By God, they tried.
Several of the reviews, because this was for the most part reviewed okay. Honestly, just some IGN gave it the highest score, 7.8.
That was the DS version.
The DS,
they only reviewed the DS.
They only reviewed the
version.
DS. They only reviewed that had the best, and that was the one on it. The console, on average, is about 60s on Metacritic.
That makes
Eurogamer
sense.
gave it a 5 out of 10, so it's kind of on pace with the last few games that we've played.
It's not beat down bad, but it's not SA2.
No, it's not that. It's very similar critic response to WWE. Honestly,
yeah,
very, very similar critic response.
I think WWE probably got a bit more praise, but yeah, this is very on par with.
And it sold 2.5 million units worldwide by November of 2008. So about a year, it had sold 2.5. So it did fine. It did pretty good.
Again, this was height of Ben 10, so that
so it doesn't surprise me. This is a game. Thomas, you had some stuff on the developer. Did you want to bring that up now?
Yeah, High Voltage, as I brought up before, High Voltage has done so much.
They get around. And
They've been around since the Atari Jaguar.
Yeah, and they're still around now, aren't they?
Yeah. Their most recent game was Zombieland Double Tap in 2019, which I've heard is bad, but I haven't played it, so I can't judge.
Well, it's a good idea. Like, I haven't actually played it, but I've watched it played, and it's a good idea. Kind of a top-down. It kind of tried to do very similar to what Scott Pilgrim did to the beat-em-up games. Just Scott Pilgrim is a good game.
Yeah, but
it's a mess of a game.
But High Voltage has done mostly licensed stuff, including Lego Racers, Lilo and Stitch Experiment 626, Kids Next Door Operation Video Game, Nicktoons MLB, Ben 10 Omniverse 2, Saints Row 4 / Get Out of Hell, Amazing Spider-Man 2 for the 3DS, the Wii versions of Captain America Super Soldier, the Wii and DS version and 3DS versions.
They did a lot of porting of games that were already known to different versions that they maybe had experience in that the other studio didn't.
Such as what you found before the podcast. They ported Mortal Kombat 9 and 10 to the Windows.
Mm-hmm. They were the studio involved with porting a lot of it. So they've done a lot of porting. I will point out that they actually made my first PlayStation game. I had a Super Nintendo initially, and then as the PlayStation came out, I'd saved up my money, and my dad went on a business trip, and I gave him my saved up money, and he brought me back a PlayStation.
Wow!
And he with that, and it came with a demo disc, so I had a demo disc, but he did buy me a game for it. It's my first game, and it was NCAA Final Four 1997.
Oh wow!
I saw that on their list, and I was like, they made my first PlayStation game that I ever owned. They also, look, their best game has to be White Men Can't Jump for the Atari Jaguar.
So that's 2 basketball games, baby. They did make a game that I want to cover on the future of the podcast, Tournament of Legends. Mm-hmm. It is a Wii fighting game.
Oh, Jesus.
And it has a very interesting development, which we'll save for that, but it's a strange game. They also had the... No, White Man Can't Jump isn't their best games. Their best game is obviously Go Diego Go Great Dinosaur Rescue.
Oh,
they made a lot of door. They made multiple Cartoon Network games. They made the Kids Next Door game.
They're big.
Harvey Birdman. They made a lot.
They made the Harvey Birdman game.
But they did a lot of porting. Like when a lot of times they clearly were really good with initially the Atari Jaguar. Then they did a lot of Windows stuff, and then they did a lot of Wii and GameCube and DS stuff. So there's a lot of ports. Like look right here, the Call of Duty 2, Big Red one, the GameCube port. They did that one. They did the 50-cent bulletproof G-Unit edition for the PlayStation Portable. So. This is clearly a studio that knew some certain systems, which I think actually did help this game in a lot of ways. That they knew both the Wii already, and they knew, the DS getting the good reviews. It seems like they knew the DS as a system and what they could and couldn't do on it.
Which makes sense. It seems like a developer that's very comfortable in the handhelds.
Mm-hmm. And also the fact that, we've talked about a lot of games that different developers did the different systems. Marvel Nemesis, somebody else did the PlayStation Portable version.
Yeah.
Larry Boy, the difference between their two versions.
WWE All-Stars.
WWE All-Stars. This is the first one we've had that the studio did all the versions of it, which... It is rare to see a studio do both the console and the portable. Not as rare for, say, like the PS2 to the PlayStation Portable, but that usually still was a port, usually that someone else handled. So, there's a reason they've stuck around for almost 3 decades.
Yeah, they've been around for a bit.
So you brought up that they've done a lot of Cartoon Network games, and that made me think, when was the last good Cartoon Network game?
Samurai Jack for the PS4.
Well, that was just a port from the...
But Samurai Jack, the Samurai Jack game...
Well, there was an original one for the Switch and whatever. It was called, Battle Through Time or whatever.
Yeah, I guess Cartoon Network Racers on the... was that on the GameCube or the PS2 that had the racers?
Yeah.
PS2, I believe.
I think it was Xbox. That one wasn't... It's a kart racing game, but it's not bad.
Look, obviously, the best Cartoon Network game was Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion XL.
Which we are going to do at some point.
We're going to do that game.
That game is... Yeah.
The opening characters you get are On Topic, Ben 10, and Shouter. Yes, we're playing that goddamn game.
What about Fusion Fall? Yeah, either of you guys remember Fusion Fall?
No, I don't.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
you remember Fusion
Yes,
Fall?
I remember Fusion Fall. That shit had a manga.
Really?
That had
no way.
That had a fucking manga. I read it. It's not good.
Fusion Fall. It was a League of Legends clone. It was an MMO.
It was a MMORPG where you were in the Cartoon Network universe. Everyone got these anime as shit redesigns,
and it crossed over between all the.
Why do I want this game?
Okay,
it doesn't exist anymore, sadly, because they shut down the servers.
That's
okay. Nope, it still exists because fans brought it back as Fusion Fall Reborn.
No way! Oh my god!
That makes me think of what would have been Dragon Ball Online, which doesn't exist anymore because it was a MMO almost exclusively in Japan. But yeah, they got shut down.
I mean, did I make a fan fiction for Fusion Fall? Yes. You can't find it anywhere. I never published it. But I did in fact make it.
Coming soon to a podcast.
Thomas's fan fiction hour coming soon to a podcast near you.
So, also a first for us in this game. This is the first one that when we sat down leading up to it, we all beat the game.
Yeah. Yes.
Every other game, we've either played a little bit, rage quit. In the example of Sonic, we'd beaten the game all in the past, so we all just wanted to get re-familiar with it. We all sat down and beat the game because the game is not particularly hard.
It's not hard, and it's also not very long, which I think is a strength for it.
I mean, I guess it's not very long, but for what it is agonizingly long in parts.
Really?
It's nearly 7 hours of gameplay.
Really? I beat it in 5.
I beat it in about 6 with some. I said I had to break a couple of things, so 6:15, 6:25.
I had a couple of days.
I was gonna say that might be. You might think it's agonizing
because I sat and played it in one.
You
playthrough,
played the whole.
Yeah, the whole thing. But also, for a game like this to be, it's repetitive. It's very repetitive, which is why I wonder if on a handheld version, DS or maybe the portable version, I might enjoy more because that's an easy shut off. I'm doing something on there, playing things. The repetitive probably doesn't feel as much because maybe I'm, as a kid, you'd be playing it on a car ride or something like that.
Yeah.
The repetitiveness got to me.
Yeah. I mean, we might as well talk about the actual gameplay if we're getting around to it. And I can describe it in 5 words. Baby's first God of War.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Baby's first God of War.
That is both its strength and that it is trying to be, and it is not a bad knockoff of God of War gameplay. It's also its weakness because it has all of the God of War flaws. And if anyone has played God of War 2 or 3 especially recently, you know the flaws I'm talking about.
The amount of times you complain about the lock-on.
And I'm going to complain a lot.
Just while I watched you play.
Yeah, you complain about the lock-on a fuck ton.
So, this game is clearly designed as a co-op game. It's a co-op action beat 'em up. That's why the camera is static. You can't move the camera. Mm-hmm. That's why those sort of things. Now, God of War didn't do that as well. That's also a problem with God of War, but the camera's there. But in a co-op environment, the problem comes is if you're going to have a co-op game like this, not having lock-on abilities is the biggest sin you can make in any game like this. Because it absolutely makes the game harder, more annoying, and not in this is a challenging sort of way, in a frustrating sort of way, because your characters, you want them to do something. Or like, for example, your early character, you have the flame guy. I'm going to refer all the...
Heat Blast.
Nope, not going to give them names. They're just going to be the guys. Flame guy, and he basically fires a Kamehameha. He fires an energy blast, a fire bat. But if you are just slightly turned the wrong way, that move is going nowhere near the character.
That is one of my
Same thing with throwing the rock. That's going nowhere near the character. Well, then if you're having a long-range attack, is useless unless you are perfectly lined up. There's a moment on it where I'm trying to shoot a button, one of the buttons that it's like shoot the button, and I am just literally slightly turned the wrong way, and I go this way. I turn too much the other way, that way. I'm back and forth each side of it. I'm like the goddamn TikTok challenge going on each side of it.
That was one of my problems, is that in like other games where you shoot lasers like this, like I think Ultimate Alliance is a good example. Mm-hmm. Say when you're using the Unibeam as Iron Man, you can rotate. In this game, you are stuck in one position when you shoot Heat Blast's Kamehameha. and it's just
Look.
it's very irritating.
When Dragon Ball Sagas understands this and your game doesn't, that is a big flaw, because let me tell you, Dragon Ball Sagas is a mess of an action beat 'em up type game like this, but at least it has lock on.
I didn't really find, and I know this is the point in the podcast where I'm going to say something contradictory to what you just said that makes you mad at me, but
Yes.
I didn't really find lock on a problem because I wasn't as methodical with my gameplay. I was very button mashy. I was very button mashy, and so at that point, lock on didn't become a problem.
See, I think the main problem with Lock On is that this is a God of War clone, as I said earlier. God of War, maybe it had Lock On. I don't remember. I haven't played God of War in a while. But
Later ones did. I feel like, I could be wrong, but I feel like 3 did, maybe 2, but I don't think 1 did.
Okay, but
I could be completely wrong on this, and they might not all have it, or they might all have it. It's been a while since I played God of War.
Okay, but all right, but let's assume they did. I never used the Lock On, so let's just assume they didn't.
Because everyone just uses the Kratos swinging the axe.
And that's the thing. Kratos has these fucking chains of Olympus or whatever. I think that's actually a game title. Whatever.
That's the PSP game.
He has these chains that just clear fucking house, so you don't really need that lock on. Almost all of Ben's aliens have just a simple 1-2 punch combo, and that's not as easy to rack up the damage when you don't have that lock on.
The other thing that God of War does better with the villains is the damage. You can see, because of what it's saying on it, trying to figure out how much I'm beating the people, how much damage it takes, how much on it. This is to all the game devs who are listening to us, because we know there are tons of them. Everyone's listening to our opinions here.
Yes.
I've got so many ideas.
Numbers and HP gauges are good things. Especially in an action adventure life, even if you're not, as I said, especially if you're doing more RPG elements, but even not, just letting me know how much damage my punch does is a good thing.
Come on, developers, listen to us. White guys chair sits.
And then the thing about God of War is, while it is a repetitive game, you do a lot of the same things. The level designs change and go more, and you're climbing, you're going through all these crazy environments, you're destroying things that, even though the majority of the game is punch square, punch triangle, punch square, punch triangle, you don't feel the repetitiveness. This game, by the end, I'm just like, it's the same thing over again.
That is one thing that I will not get. Like the level design isn't as creative as I thought as it could have been, and I think part of that is because a lot of it, well, not a lot of it, but most of it is supposed to be modeled after like real world places, because
but with no people in them.
With no people in them.
Which not even a complaint. Just very funny that they're talking about like this disasters on Earth and we see no other humans.
Well, because they're all locked up in their houses, I guess.
I think they made that joke. I think where are the world leaders? Oh, they probably went home with their families.
Yeah, that is something.
They're all in the abandoned buildings district, obviously. But I think another problem that kind of hurts the variety of this game is the aliens. And that's not to say that it's a necessarily bad selection.
What, the ones that you play as?
Yeah, the ones that you play as.
Yeah.
Because it's called Ben 10. And, I get that you can't have 10 aliens.
The Tennysons.
Yeah, the Tennysons, that's their fucking name.
I know, and I like that the moment when that happens, it goes, is that why it's called?
It's Ben 10 because he has 10 aliens, as in his name's Tennyson, but he gets an 11th one like the fucking 4th episode.
Then he should be Kevin 11.
Here's the thing though, is that he gets new aliens, but then he also sometimes loses old ones, like with Ghost Freak.
Who Shawn had no idea who that was. He's the fucking...
he's the ghost guy, the upside down head, the ghost guy.
Steve Blum.
Yeah, really interesting.
All the Steve Blums.
Really interesting about that character is that used to be one of Ben's aliens. That was one that he could turn into, but this is the lore dump portion of the episode. But,
we have Mason the Lorax.
So the way that the Omnitrix works is that it contains certain aliens that are from certain planets. I believe the original intent for it was to be sort of like a translation device. Like if you were to go to that planet, you could turn into that alien and then you'd become one of them.
Yes.
And something like that. And the Ghost Freak species character that was in the Omnitrix turned out to be not just any old ghost, but the leader of the ghosts. He was the main ghost guy, and the whole time that he was in the Omnitrix, he was trying to figure out a way to get out, and eventually he did, and now he's a villain and not a character that Ben can turn into.
Which
I'm going Ghost.
is
I would kill for a Danny Phantom game. Anyway,
and there's a GBA
Has to
ones.
there's a GBA one.
Is it just? Is there?
There's
only
no
been a GBA?
console ones. It's
Yep.
just GBA.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things is, I mean, we talked about we didn't talk about the aliens, but we are talking about them. Let's play a little game. What aliens did you all use? Because if the answer isn't Heat Blast, you played the game wrong.
I went
Fire Boy, sometimes Four-Armed Boy, and Plant Boy.
I think I did I think I got through I think I used all of them pretty much the same amount. I think I used Cannonball a little bit more, but I think all of them I used pretty much the same amount.
For me, I used Heat Blast. I fully upgraded by the end of the game. Heat Blast, Forearms, and Cannonball, and I did not fucking touch the other two. Like, I did not touch Accelerator Whipvine. I did not like them.
I touched
did not.
Whipvine a lot at the end because he is really strong.
It's Wildvine.
I don't give
I'm
a
going to
fuck.
call him Whipvine because he's got vines that are whippies. And he runs along like a spider do.
I don't care.
Spider Plant dude.
I just said I don't fucking like him.
Well, because you get him after you've fought the boss that you don't like.
Yeah, fitting because it's the plant boss. But yeah, I didn't care for. Is it Wildvine?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't care for Wildvine. Just in general, I didn't like his design. I didn't like his. I didn't care for him.
I really liked Wildvine because one of his heavy attack moves, he spins around really fast. He can hit multiple enemies
That's what I
really
was saying.
fast.
I used him a lot and liked him in the multiple enemies because he also didn't take damage like Heat Boy's spinning tornado. You can still take damage.
You
in
can
the
still take
tornado.
damage in it, which I thought was. Now, see, that's when you use one of the other moves that you end up unlocking, where you just screw off into the sky
Yes,
where
and
nobody
throw
can
the
hit
ball.
you and throw them down.
Yes.
Okay, see, that was my thing because
Rain of Fire. Yes.
by the time I had unlocked Whipvine, if you can't tell, my favorite Ben 10 alien has Heat Blast because I'm the most basic of bitches. By the time I got to Whipvine, I had almost fully upgraded because it's locked off for certain levels. Like World 4, you can upgrade them more. World 5, you can upgrade them more. Stuff like that. By the time I had gotten Wildvine, I had almost fully upgraded a Heat Blast, so I had the Tornado attack and I had the Rain of Hellfire attack. So I'm just like, why the fuck would I ever use Whipvine?
And then you probably also got the move where when you hit, you were playing on PlayStation, so if you hit circle twice, he just sends out.
Yeah,
an
he
explosion.
just does Chaos Blast. That's
Yeah.
what he does.
The
And then
problem with a lot of them is also some. This is a nitpick more than anything else, but the leveling up feels very arbitrary at times. Instead of because you don't know how many you're beating, what you get to level up, things like that.
Oh yeah, you do.
Numbers are good.
Well, no, yeah, you do. Did you notice under the health bar, there's a little yellow
Yes.
bar. That's.
Numbers are good. Give me more numbers.
I mean,
yeah, you didn't
Give me more numbers.
fair enough.
You didn't have an actual amount of XP you needed.
That's it. That's
Okay.
it. That's
Okay,
it. That's a
that's
nitpick.
fair.
It's a nitpick on it. They didn't go full Legacy of Goku 1, where you don't know your XP unless you hit the start menu, go under 3 menus, and then find that and see how much
Oh,
things did.
jeez.
Ah,
I mean,
but-
I guess at least it was there.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I didn't use Web. Is it? I don't
Wildvine.
fucking care.
Webvine.
I care.
I don't.
Thomas, I care.
I don't like him. They should have replaced him. They should have given him fucking Wild Mud or whatever. That would have been better. But I did not use Wildvine, and I didn't use Accelerate because I hated fighting with Accelerate. I
early
hated
on in the
fighting
game.
with
Accelerate was fine, but his usage seems to fall off very quickly because he doesn't do damage.
He's too slippery.
He was speed bitch.
And-
That's all he was. He was speed bitch, and like Wildvine was grapple bitch. That's what.
With that being said, I think Accelerate's where you see the worst controls in the game in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
and again, the controls are fine. I didn't find a huge problem with it. They're basic, which, beat down Fist of Vengeance could have taken a little bit from some of these controls and been like, yeah, this is how you introduce some better combos and have them work.
Yeah.
But so it was nice to play a game and be like, I'm not upset at the controls. I'm upset at a lot of other things, but the controls not.
I also like. I think this is probably why I didn't find it as monotonous as you did, because there's like I found that the way that fighting as an alien works kind of broke up the monotony a little bit, because if you get beat up too much, in an alien form, you turn back into Ben, and when you're back as Ben, you're a whole lot weaker. So you got to run away from everyone, and you can't fight as much. And I think that's an interesting mechanic.
That's fair. I don't think the mechanic's a bad thing. I think some of the monotony is that the variation of the villains or your enemies don't change. Like, the only variation is, this one has more armor, or this one is they're not like. Whereas something like, say, while different styles of games, but let's say something like Kingdom Hearts, or an action RPG type of at the time that would be around, is where villains don't necessarily change. They just get you're hard. You have to have more challenge. You have to use more moves. I never felt like, I need to figure out the move to beat this one. It's sometimes experiment with the alien, but a lot of it is just let me ram my head against the wall as many times as I can and miss it, and I'll eventually kill it.
And
because in the end, they're just like slight variations of all the villains or enemies. And again, it's more of a nitpick again than an outright, oh my gosh, this is bad.
And I think that...
But that is partly why the monotony I felt is like, by the end, I'm like, I'm just fighting a slightly... This version now is harder because this one holds a shield. Or this one has a cannon, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, and I think they did that on purpose, though, because
it's baby's first God of War.
You do need to like take that into context, is that this game was made for the 10, 11, 12, 13 age group.
Well, let's put it this way. It's made for two demographics. 10, 11, 12, all those kind of kids, and Ben 10 fans.
And Ben, this is definitely a game for the fans.
I think that's why Shawn's probably going to be the harshest. I don't think you're going to tear this game apart.
No. This is more than anything. This is just that was a game. Than anything.
It's one of the games of all time.
But Mason's probably going to be the one who likes it the most. If I had to guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's also nostalgia goggles here too.
And I'm in the middle, because I know stuff about Ben 10, but like I said, I have not watched it in a long time. I meant to watch some episodes in preparation for this episode, but instead I watched Baki.
I watched episodes. I almost finished the first season today. I'm gonna finish the first season tonight.
Yeah, that checks out. But that actually leads to kind of one of my things for the monotony and the repetitiveness is the rewards for beating things. I was like, okay, I unlocked a move that I might use because you're at the halfway point of the game. You've unlocked all the aliens, so there's not a lot of reward for beating the levels. I don't feel accomplished once I unlock all the aliens very much. And that was something in the game that's like, if I wasn't playing this for a podcast or playing this because I'm made the decision I'm going to beat this stupid game, probably about that point, probably even as a kid, I probably would have quit at some point in that game, just be like, what am I getting for beating this game?
And I think adding more aliens to it would have helped with that, but I feel like they limited it to just those 5 because they were probably the easiest to develop.
Which there is an exclusive one for the DS version.
Mm-hmm. There's
there is, but
there's Upchuck.
But he's not actually like a playable character in it. He's basically just like a nuke sort of thing that you bring him in, he does a little animation, and all the enemies in the area are dead.
I do enjoy that the story gives a reason why Ben doesn't use all those aliens, but there is also again, sorry, I really don't like Wildvine. I fucking hate Wildvine. It's just the decisions they made for the aliens are weird. Forearms.
They all seem to be the aliens are which way can I solve puzzles?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, we need Wildvine because that way we can swing across. We need the Speed Dude because we want to do Speed Dude puzzles.
Yeah. Cannonball because
We wanna do
he
ramps.
He can roll around at the speed of sound.
Why are there
rolling around
why are there
at the
just
speed.
ramps randomly around places? Anybody else wonder that? Like while they were
The same reason there's ramps in just SA2.
Yeah.
I'm going to reference Sonic so goddamn much every time we bring up Cannonball because all I think of is Sonic whenever he does
Well,
the spinball.
not to mention playing this game, because my biggest complaint is locking on in this game. Sonic does that.
Sonic
We
does do
lock
that.
on a game that came out years before.
That's fair.
And that's the thing that comes up a lot of it is there are good games, Sonic Adventure 2 that we've played. There are bad games that we've played. Beatdown, or even Marvel Nemesis things that the same problem is that locking on is a huge thing. If you're going to do a 3D world and you don't have the ability to lock on, because you run into things when you're a two-dimensional brawler, locking on's not as important because you can know your things. When you're in 3D and the inability to lock on, and I'm not even just into fighting, also because of the way they set up the platforming, I should be, if I'm Wildfire, I should be able to lock on to that easier. Now, it had a huge hitbox of getting the vine to go there. I tested some of that, how far away you could be, and he still grabs the things. So like,
The funny thing about that is just a little quick piece of trivia that I found while looking up this game. The sound that Wildvine makes when he does the swinging is the same noise that Spider-Man's webs make in the GameCube game, the GameCube Spider-Man game.
they borrowed a sound effect.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. Honestly, kind of cool. But in some of the puzzles and the platforming's not good in this game, but it's co-op platforming. So like, I'll forgive it a little bit in this because it's meant for co-op, so that's what's going to happen. But depth is a problem in this game. Depth,
Yeah. And I think that
landing on it is a problem because.
I think that goes.
And that goes with the locking on and being able to line up is I'll look like I'm directly lined up, but because the depth is hard to judge in this game, I'm actually way off to the side.
I don't know if it was just like me having played this game before, but that was not a problem that I had.
And I think that also goes back to it having just that God of War camera. Because it very much, but even God of War, it shifted the camera. I mean, God of War, its camera just wants to show off the pretty landscapes. This one just like doesn't move.
It doesn't move. It's a co-op game. Again, when we play Dragon Ball Sagas, there's another not moving camera because it's a co-op game. Because it's a co-op. It's meant to be not split screen co-op. You're on the same screen, so you can't be moving the camera. So I understand why they did it, but how you try to fix those problems for it is you have to be able to lock on. If I can't turn my camera, locking on is the biggest sin you can commit in an action type game because I need to be able to move. Even bad. Look, there are some very bad PlayStation 2 platforming games that I love that have these effects. For example, the original Kingdom Hearts. God, the platforming is awful in that game.
Really?
It's awful.
Fucking dog
it's
shit.
Awful. A lot of the controls have not aged well in that game. But because I can lock onto enemies and lock onto things, I can and I can move a camera, I'm not as worried about it. So this game, because it's a co-op based game, they made the choice to do static camera, no moving around on it. If I could just lock onto an enemy or lock onto something on the side, would it make the platforming easier? A little bit. Would it make it like a great game? It probably doesn't change the gameplay a ton, but it makes it a game that is like, oh, I actually feel like I'm doing things instead of me quickly hitting buttons and being like, well, it's meant for kids, so this is probably going to work.
Take a shot every time Shawn says lock on. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I made that joke during the stream.
Oh, you did?
I made that same joke.
See, I think you were asleep by the time I got on there. So,
I probably was.
So, let's shift over to the boss fights.
That's fair. They are. Remember how much time we spent on the boss fights for Sonic Adventure and a couple of those, and those don't have the greatest boss fights. Boy, they tried God of War bosses here. They tried God of War bosses.
I didn't hate a lot of the bosses. The only one that I kind of had a problem with is one that you'll bring up, which I'm going to let you bring up. But I didn't have a problem.
So my thing, and Thomas is going to have a slightly different thing on this, but my thing on the boss fights is they are literally just parodying or taking off over what God of War bosses. But what God of War did with the bosses was the God of War bosses are not necessarily meant for skill. The skill is getting to the bosses, and then you're supposed to be looking at this spectacle, and that's why the quick time events and all the things that are going on. Is
I don't
you're
know.
looking
I would say that quick time events require skill. That's why I like the Wii version more, is because it doesn't have quick time events.
I mean, you can make that argument.
Not in this game. The quick time events that you have nearly 10, 15 seconds to hit the button.
It's not true.
It is a long time.
You have a long ass time, dude. Like, I have shit fucking reflexes. You have a long ass time.
There are multiple times where I set the controller down, looked away, and looked up right. After a while, I was like, "Oh, there's a button now. I should have hit that." Like, not really. There's a quick time event. The thing is, the quick time events in God of War, as annoying as they can be for skill base and things like that, God of War it's meant to be the spectacle.
Yeah, and
These bosses are just there.
and God of War does have some weird. Take a shot every time Shawn brings up Lock-On. Take a shot every time I bring up God of War.
Ben 10 of War.
Ben 10 of War.
Okay, you know what? Hey, look, Ben 10 would beat Kratos because he's got Alien X, according to Ben 10 fans.
Oh, yeah.
Look, like how you were like, yeah. What is it? What's it to you? For God of War boss, quick time events, you have like the turning the analog stick or whatever, and that's a pain in the ass, but at least like it does require like a bit more than just pressing the button.
It'll be like mash triangle, quickly hit square, turn a stick. There's a bunch of there's more combinations. This is like hit square.
And then hit triangle.
Sometimes it's just hit square and that's it.
Yeah.
Or hit circle and that's it.
And again, I think that goes down to this being baby's first God of War. Because, like, again, take a shot every time I bring up God of War. And Sonic, you're going to be fucking dead. But not Sonic Adventure. Sonic Unleashed. It has the Werehog. That is also very much baby's first God of War. And that also has the quick time events. Those are a bit more frustrating because there's less time to it. I mean, if I'm being honest, I'd rather play this over Sonic Unleashed. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
I mean, a podcast in the future.
At the very least, I'd rather play this than the Werehog sections in Sonic Unleashed.
I mean, this is probably a better God of War clone, if only. I mean,
at the time, God of War. Talking about how huge God of War was. God of War was everywhere.
God of War ruled the goddamn world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
but I mean, Ben 10 was everywhere at one point too.
The amount of just.
Well, just in terms of video game, why they would copy it.
I was going to say.
Okay.
Why a studio would choose to use God of War kind of as their
base.
their blueprint to make a game.
I mean,
would make sense because of.
I mean, this came out. This was probably one of the first ones. I don't want to say it was the first because there's probably some, but like, just like off the top of my head, Heavenly Sword, Darksiders 1, Dante's Inferno, all three just very blatant God of War ripoffs. And this game was kind of the progenitor of it, so you can kind of give it a bit of slack for kind of copying God of War in a. I'm not going to say this is the worst God of War ripoff I've ever played.
No.
That, again, would probably go to Sonic Unleashed Werehog sections because they're just so fucking long.
Oh, man.
There's going to be some Sonic Unleashed fan who's like going to fucking snipe me through the window.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Hey, if you're a Sonic Unleashed fan and you want to tell Thomas why Thomas is wrong, hey, go to Apple iTunes right now. Give us 5 stars and then write 6 paragraphs
about why I'm wrong.
You've made at least one enemy.
Oh, I've made more. There's Sonic Unleashed has so many fans, and I don't get it. You're all wrong. Fucking fight me. No, I'm kidding. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion unless it's wrong.
Unless it's the beatdown fist of vengeance.
Unless it's that beatdown fist of vengeance is good.
Is a work of art.
then you need to get fucking instituted.
Oh my.
But like, what the fuck were
Where
we
were you going with that?
I don't know. God of War boss. Oh, you were the plant boss. You were.
Oh yeah, the plant boss. Fuck the plant boss. Honestly, the bosses in general in this game,
They go from bland to downright just boring to just kind of annoying.
Yeah, I thought it was zero punctuation quote while I was playing the game, and it's from I believe his DMC Devil May Cry review. and he says, whenever a boss gains like 4,000 feet of height, my first thought should not be, phew, that's a relief. Because the giant boss fights in this game, aside from the plant one, because it has these fucking bullshit combos where it can combo you, that's one of the things that pissed me off about this game too. Not just the boss fights, but the combat in general. Enemies should not be able to hit you while you're fucking knocked down. They should not be able to do that. I don't care, because God of War didn't do that, and a lot of the God of War ripoffs didn't do that. Devil May Cry didn't do that. I mean, Devil May Cry is not a God of War ripoff, but it's still that
It doesn't do that.
3D action game. 3D action games in general, you should not be able to get your ass beat while you're fucking knocked down, unless there's like some grapple mechanics. This game doesn't have that. Why are the enemies able to hit you while you're knocked the fuck down?
The other thing that annoys me a bit, I say annoys, but just is just like
Another
I-
nitpick.
it's less of a nitpick because I know why, because it's a baby's first God of War. You know, that's why it is. But in a lot of the boss fights, you don't do very much damage to the bosses. You don't do very much. It's all the quick time events that do it. And I know God of War is similar in a lot of ways that does that, and that annoys me in God of War. It's like when I go to a boss fight, even if it's going to be a hard boss fight, the feeling of me beating the boss and not, oh, I got him a third of the way down, so now there's a quick time event that's going to take him down to almost zero health so that I can hit him, is kind of annoying. Also, bosses that have a quick time event at the end that if you fail, you have to do it all over again, annoy me. Resident Evil does that at times, that is so annoying.
At least Ben 10 doesn't kill you for the quick time event.
Yeah, that's true.
I would have actually gotten fucking furious, because also the thing about the boss fights, you can't skip the pre-boss cutscenes, and that's annoying as shit.
That was a little bit annoying,
Can you
I
skip-
will admit.
I don't know if you can skip any of the cutscenes.
You
in
can
this
skip
game.
the regular cutscenes, but the ones that are set up right before the boss, you can't.
The ones that are in-game.
Yes.
The ones that are in game. That's stupid. That's so stupid.
You should go with. I think it's Final Fantasy X-2 that does this, and I think Kingdom Hearts does this as well. That the first time, a lot of them aren't skippable, but then after the second time, you have the ability to hit start and skip scene.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I'm
what I
fine
would
if you.
like.
I'm fine if you want us to see it for the first time, even if these cutscenes are the boss appears. It does shit. Like that's what
Steve Blum is somehow every character.
Dude, Steve Blum's voice is so many goddamn people in this game. He's Heat Blast, he's Ghost Freak, he's Vilgax.
He voices a lot of people in the show, too.
I know, because Steve.
So when I said last episode with Mason, why Mason should play a remake of Beatdown because Steve Blum is in it, Mason's like, nah, bet, I've got a game with Steve Blum.
It's like, you want Steve Blum? I got all Steve Blum.
Hold my Ben 10.
Oops, all Steve Blum. Love Steve Blum too. So this is my favorite game ever made now.
Am I going to cut that and then use that as a quick thing and tag Steve Blum briefly in this on Twitter? Yes, I am. Oops, all Steve Blum.
So, going back to like how there's a cutscene before most of the bosses, this is the thing that I'm going to say that's contradictory to what you just said. That's probably going to make you mad. I didn't have a problem with that because, like I beat most of the bosses first try. The only one that I didn't beat first try was the plant, and
If you can't see it, but I literally just have a note in my notepads that says unskippable pre-boss cutscenes equals bad. That's all I have on my
I'm pretty sure I have on my notes that just says not being able to lock on bad.
But see, again, I didn't have a problem with the pre-cutscenes because the only boss that I didn't beat the first try was the plant boss.
So let's talk about the plant boss for a second before we finish up our conversation on this. So a lot of them are basic God of War, big mech fighting, or guy with just lots of HP that you have to fight.
Yeah.
That is the majority of them. The plant boss is very much an outlier, where it is this big plant and you have to destroy his bulbous balls.
Out of context.
The sprout,
It's the
you
ball-
have
the
to
ball
pop
breaker.
it- You have to break his balls, and then it stuns him for a little bit. You have to hit him, but his stun is short, and then he attacks. And his damage, he has 2 or 3 hits of knocking you out of your alien form to Ben, and he's 2 hits to kill you if you're Ben. The problem in a lot of that is because then at that point a ramp has to come up and you have to hit him. Mm-hmm. Your characters are slow.
Yeah, and
Your
also,
characters are slow. All of them are slow.
And also, this is before, like, because later on in the game you can just switch from one alien to another. I really think that should have been in the game from the beginning. And I know that's because, they're trying to find the DNA or whatever, but that would have made the plant boss so much easier if I could, kick the shit out of their balls as cannonball, switch to accelerate, run over to the ramp, then turn back to cannonball and hit them.
There would have been a lot of it, and I think some of that, because that actual not having the infinite, energy, or like the energy to be switched back and forth, I think is part of this is meant for kids, so it's supposed to be explore and find. But I think there would have been a lot more skill in the game if you could have been able to it, and then you were trying to find the combos between the characters, switching quickly back and forth.
I was going to say,
there actually would be more skill based to it if that was the thing, because you could have make more combos. Out
how
of it.
badass would it be if you could uppercut some motherfucker in the air's forearms, turn to heat blast, fireball him a couple times, and then turn to accelerate and just Bruce Lee kick his ass through a wall or something.
I mean, that's kind of what some of the QuickTime events are.
Yeah, but I want to actually feel like I'm doing it.
That's the thing.
Actually doing
That's the thing. Because most of the combos, again, they're pretty good. Like, the combos are fine. This is not Beat Down Fist of Vengeance. This is not, why are these combos not working? But they're almost all 2 or 3 buttons.
Yeah, they're
it's
not...
not long strings. Again, this is meant for younger kids, so on that. But in that sort of skill, if you were trying to make a game that is meant, that is trying to be easy for an audience, a younger audience, but also add skill for an upper audience, that's where switching back and forth, I think, would have been something where this game maybe would have had a lasting legacy, because there would have been a skill base to it that a lot of people that maybe even aren't fans would flock to it to try to be better at it.
Yeah, and maybe the later Ben 10 games do that, because there's a shit ton of Ben 10 games.
There are a lot of Ben 10 games.
So maybe the later ones do that, but this is the one that we're playing, so this is the one we're going to bring up.
We're going to bring up.
And, I mean, we bring up that it does give you unlimited energy later on.
Well, not unlimited energy, but it allows you to switch back and forth. Because you can still, when you go to Ben, you still have to wait till it to charge.
True, but in the last world, the world you fight Vilgax in, you do have you can do the combos an unlimited amount of times. And I just have in my notes, I appreciate that the game lets you go sicko mode. Because I like that you can just nuke everyone as heat blast, turn to cannonball, do their pinball thing, turn to forearms, and do the Hulk, do the Hulk thunderclap thing. I like that you can do that with the unlimited. Again, I like that it just lets you go sicko mode. Oh yeah, the plant boss still sucks. But also, I had trouble with Vilgax. That could have been. I didn't when I figured out. Oh shit, I can just block everything.
Yeah.
Because you want to know how to beat this game?
Block.
Just block.
You don't run out of block. It doesn't. There's no meter that stops you from blocking. You just can block, and it can block every attack.
See, you say
block.
that,
except for the only attack it cannot block is the big guys that do the ground splitting move.
I also say it can't dodge the plant boss's spike head attack, which is another reason why the plant boss sucks. But yeah, I can block Vilgax's shockwaves. I can block his missiles and everything. It also has to do with the fact that his final phase uses Wild Vine, and I hate Wild Vine. So,
but now see, you guys say beat the game. You have to block. I don't think I blocked a single time throughout my entire playthrough, but I beat it just fine. Maybe that has something to do with me having played it before. But
I mean, I will also say you want the I win button fully upgrade Heat Blast.
Oh yeah,
because he gets these just rain of fire attacks. He gets this big he gets this big spirit bomb of fire.
Especially when you're fighting the Frankenstein, fully powered Frankenstein things, because those things are annoying. They do tons of damage, but if you're just jumping above and nuking them from above, nuking from the orbit, that's the only way to be sure.
Heat Blast fully upgraded is the fuck off I win button. I mean, Forearms and Cannonball, like I said, I fully upgraded them too. They're pretty good fully upgraded, but Heat Blast is, when you fully upgrade them, it's just you win. You win the game.
Alrighty. So on this podcast, we like to ask 2 important questions for each game we play. The first one is, how does this game hold up?
I honestly think it holds up really well. In some ways,
no surprise from you there.
in more ways than others. I think Some of the cutscenes were a little bit jankier than I remember them.
Oh, sorry. That is something I did want to bring up, actually. The cutscenes aren't great, but some of the writing is pretty funny.
The writing
man.
is decent.
I think
that's why my intro was lines from the game. It's some of them are really stupid, but they're funny. I did
very
chuckle
funny.
a bunch.
like one of my favorite. I think all my favorite lines in the game come from the end of the game, near the end of the game. Like there's one where Gwen gets kidnapped by, Big Monkey Guy, but his name's Dr. Animal, but Big Monkey Guy.
Big Monkey Guy,
Yeah.
Where they kidnap.
who I thought was the final boss, and then when the game wasn't over, I was
It's like,
very
oh, no,
upset.
Vilgax. Oh no, it's Vilgax.
I was like, "There's more."
There's more.
The final world isn't that long, but
No.
he kidnaps Gwen, and Ben's like, because their RV is called the Rust Bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're wondering why Grandpa Max knows a bunch of shit, it's because he's like this secret agent or whatever.
He's their get out of jail free card. He knows everything.
He's basically Nick Fury. He's Ben 10's version of Nick Fury, basically.
Oh, yeah.
But the RV can like transform whatever. So Ben's like, is the Rust Bucket
Seaworthy.
Yeah, SeaWorther, and Grandpa Max is like, you kidding? This thing is the original all-terrain vehicle, but you might want to grab buckets from the storage unit. Like, that made me laugh. And then there's like, Grandpa Max is like, come on, we gotta go. And Ben's like, hey, I just beat the shit out of like a bunch of aliens. Can I get a compliment? And Grandpa Max is like, Gwen, compliment your cousin. And Gwen's like, nice watch, where'd you get it? That shit's funny.
There are some pretty funny lines overall.
Like, a lot of them are stupid, but like, Ben makes a really bad pun every time he turns into an alien because he's fucking 10. Of course he does.
Maybe that's why I like this game.
Yes,
Yeah,
your
maybe
child
that's why
brain,
you
your
like
child
the game.
brain activates. I think this game, it doesn't hold up amazingly as a single player game. There are a lot. I said at first, there are fine elements to it. It's monotonous. It's repetitive. If I weren't playing for the podcast, I can't imagine I would pick this game up. So there's that element to it. But I will say, I bet it holds up a little better as a co-op game because I bet there is a more party game feel to it that is a lot more
Probably.
fun. So I would, because co-op games, hey, developer studios, co-op games on the same system are fun.
Very.
They don't have to be online. Two people sitting and hanging out and co-oping is fun.
Yeah.
More games need to do that.
Yes,
Very much so.
absolutely. That was something that I completely forgot about actually until just now. A lot of the fun that I got from playing that game was playing 2-player with my dad, who knew absolutely nothing about Ben 10, but it was still fun for both of us.
So you could have played it with Shawn and recreated the experience.
I honestly bet the co-op because you can forgive bad camera, bad platforming mechanics when you're having fun with 2 players. It's why when we play Dragon Ball Sagas, we are going to have to sit down and play the co-op mode because that's the only way to play the game.
Oh dear.
Because solo mode is not fun. Co-op mode legitimately makes a bad game very fun. It's still a bad game, but very fun.
For how this game holds up, I don't think it holds up like amazingly, but
because God of War doesn't hold up amazingly right now.
Oh, yeah.
that's why they fucking changed it big time with God of War 2018. And I don't really dig
As
God
I
of
said,
War
the most
2018.
recent God of War game I played was God of War 3. And that game is a chore to play in parts of it because there's so many things that by the time it came out, and especially now, you're like, oh, no wonder they've changed this in future games because it's like when you go back and play Resident Evil games, you go, oh, tank control sucked, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I probably will go back and play this game, honestly, but that's only because you do get unlimited energy by the end of the game. So I think it would be fun to see if I can just go through the first levels and get these little enemies. Like, I'm going to beat you up, Ben Tennyson, and then Heat Blast just flies into orbit and nukes and drops the sun on them.
It's like, yeah, cute.
Yeah, so I'll probably go back to it for that, but if not for that, I don't think I'd touch this game again.
And speaking on how this game holds up, I can bet that it's probably held up a lot better than some Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon games from this era.
Probably. There are a lot of them, and there are not a lot of good ones.
No. I mean, do I want K&D Operation Video Game? Yes. But I'm willing to bet like there's not going to be a ton.
This is probably one of the better of the Cartoon Network.
Probably,
But hey.
it's not the best because, like I said, honestly, I hear Ed, Ed, and Eddie. That game is actually pretty fun.
There's an Ed, Ed, and Eddie
No, there
game?
is.
There's,
Oh,
But you know
Lord.
what? If you're listening to this podcast, share it with your friends, family, everyone, and then, give us an audience, and we'll play all the Cartoon Network games.
Okay, so we have all the Cartoon Network games, all the WWE games, all the Dragon Ball games. All
Look,
the Sonic
eventually
games.
when we're 20 seasons in, and, because we're playing all of, we're playing Neo Geo and the
and the Hyperscan.
the Hyperscan, the Philips CDI. See, that's what's going to happen.
Like I can bet you anything that this game probably holds up better than Cartoon Network Racing.
See,
Cartoon Network Racing is pretty fun, honestly.
I
It's
have-
not, again, it's a bad. Well, I say bad. It's a kart racer in the mid 2000s that's not Mario Kart. So you know
So-
what you're getting.
So it's not Super Bomb Bad Racing Bad, but it's not Double Dash.
Yikes!
So our second question that we like to ask: would you like to see this game get a reimagining or remake in a modern setting?
So the thing about this question referring to a Ben 10 game, especially this Ben 10 game, is that since the original series, there have been there were two that were continuations of the original series. There was a reboot called Omniverse, and then after that,
No, sorry.
Huh?
Omniverse was a continuation.
no, it wasn't. It was a reboot.
I thought it was a continuation.
No, it was a complete reboot.
Ben 10 fights.
God damn it.
It was a complete reboot of the series, and then they rebooted it again, and this one's just called Ben 10 again, and it's very similar to like Teen Titans Go or Steven Universe. That has a very similar art style to the shows like those, and there are games based on that show that are very similar. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Bitch.
That's not. No,
Bitch. Bitch.
that is the
Bitch.
That's the Wikipedia. They lie. Wikipedia lies all the time.
The fake news.
What?
It
It
is-
looks nothing like any of those shows. How is it a continuation?
I don't know. I'm just seeing
Probably a
what I'm
story
reading.
continuation. I don't know.
Something like that. But anyways, there are games that are based on the most recent iteration of Ben 10, and they do play very similar to at least the first one. It was just called Ben 10, released in 2017. At least that one looks and plays kind of similar to Protector of Earth. Although that being said, I think there is still like a fairly large fan base for the original Ben 10. Like I think a good chunk of Ben 10 fans will tell you that series is the best. So I would definitely if it were me, I would definitely play like a remake of this game maybe add some more levels, maybe bring in some aliens that weren't available to play as in that version, and I would play it. And I'll bet a large number of others would play it.
Part of me did have the same response before the podcast where I don't know if this game would get a remake because Ben 10 is still going strong, even if it is the reboot. And they have the new Ben 10 games, which I hear aren't bad, honestly.
I was looking at some gameplay videos while you guys were talking, and they look all right. They look decent.
They look like basic 3D beat 'em ups, but this time it's for the PS4. But honestly, when we were talking about it and just how you could fix this game with a lock on and just from the beginning switching between aliens and doing more combos, it would be more of a reimagining than a remake, but I would like to see a game like that. Or at the very least, do I think that would happen? No. But at the very least, I think, if anything, just put Ben 10 in multiverses.
Oh, please.
I think that's what's.
Please.
I think that's what's gonna happen. It's the reboot. Fuck.
You know what I would play is a Ben 10 game in this style, and there have been other Ben 10 games in this style that are based on the continuations based on the newer series. But what I would like to play is one that threads between each show. Like you start out as the original Ben 10, and then after a while it then goes into Ben 10 Alien Force where he's a teenager, and then you play through it for a little bit. Then you play through Ultimate Alien,
Yeah.
and then you play through Omniverse. I'd play it like that.
Yeah, I think that would be like a big budget Ben 10 game where you just go through basically his entire life. And
Yes.
and you build up to like the big final fight with. I haven't seen Omniverse, so I don't know. I'm just gonna say Vilgax.
Yeah, I haven't seen Omniverse either. Or a whole lot of it. From what I did see, I was like, this is too different. I don't like it.
Okay, so that's probably why it's seen as a reboot. Instead
Yeah,
of
because that's why I thought it was a reboot, because it's just the art style is completely different.
I actually like the art style of Omniverse better.
I
I like the more angular designs.
Ben 10 fight.
maybe it's just because the original 3 shows are the ones that I grew up with, but that's what I prefer.
I mean, that's fair.
I don't like that they gave Ben 10 a smartwatch as the Omnitrix.
Oh, they did?
They did. That's what it looks like.
I didn't notice that.
Modern. Makes sense.
I was going to say modern. I don't like that, but I like the rest of the designs because I just like the more angular designs, but that's just a me thing. It's also why I will watch, say, Justice League Unlimited or Teen Titans 2003 before most cartoons nowadays.
That's fair.
Because I just like that angular design.
As someone who had absolutely no connection to Ben 10 before this was the first Ben 10 object that I've ever
Interact
put
with.
into my eyeballs.
Sean touched the game and it's like, what the fuck is this?
So a remake is not necessarily something that I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm clamoring for. But as I've said in this, there is an element of skill that could be added to this game that a reimagining could bring out. Where I think you could create a game that that fans and people who aren't familiar with it would jump into. Well, not the same style, not at all, but I think of a lot of times of how Dragon Ball FighterZ basically created an entire new group of people who played the game that had no knowledge at all about it because the game was a competitive,
I was gonna
fighter.
Say, there's this YouTuber I follow. Sorry to interrupt. There's this YouTuber I follow named Maximilian Dude. He knew nothing about Dragon Ball, but Fighter Z looked sick, so he just
Yeah, and it was a huge thing.
He got into Dragon Ball.
I think this game, if you reimagined, did very similar story. You didn't have to change a whole lot of things. Maybe give a little more introduction to the show before everything happens, so you kind of know what's going on, even if it's just a summary of what happens up to it. But adding a lock-in system. If you're still doing co-op, but if you're not, a more movable camera, but a lock-on system, and then a better, more like, not full RPG, but a better leveling up system that you're building towards and trying to do that, I think would help differentiate the aliens. Because, hey, I need to use, maybe, at this point you're like, I'm going to have to use Plant Boy here, so I'm going to have to level him up. Thomas isn't forced to play him. Maybe Thomas then learns, oh, I actually maybe like Plant Boy because I had to play him because I needed to level him up. There's an element of, like, working towards it and building it. I think there's something that could be there that could create non-fans to this game that would want them to be more interested, and maybe that leads to it, to watching the show, watching more. But overall, my answer is probably no, because just I don't have a connection. But I do think there is a path to a reimagining if they wanted to.
I was gonna say I'm more for a reimagining than a remake. Like I said, just imagine like a platinum style game with this, where like I said, you can just switch aliens on the fly, just flinging people through walls and stuff. It'd be cool.
Either making it more of an action RPG element to it, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Kingdom Hearts, that sort of style, or going full skill base and going even more like Devil May Cry direction.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking like
would be
Devil May Cry would appeal more to me, but I'm sure the RPG would probably be what they do.
Either way, then you ratchet up. It's more about the skill than anything, because the story, there's not much to this story. It's very basic. So if you're playing this game, you're playing it for either because you're a diehard Ben 10 fan and you just need to play and the co-op might be there, or you were looking for a game that maybe
raise that high, buddy.
Could like test your skills.
Raise your honor.
If it was something that was giving you something to test more of your skills, I think that would be more appealing. And so that's where I think the game eventually turned me off, was that
it's very
it's very basic.
Maybe if there's like a point system,
something along those, either more rewarding or something along those lines.
Like a combo, like again, May Cry the triple S's or whatever.
Just a little bit more, because just having ranks at the end didn't matter as much to me. I didn't care if I was getting an A, B, C, or whatever level rank. at all, because it didn't feel like I was knowing in the game if I was doing it right or doing something good, which is where God of War, Devil May Cry lets you know that you're doing good in the level, so you kind of know where you're at.
Right, I get you.
But, so what do you guys think? Do you like Ben 10? Do you like this game, Protector of Earth? Let us know. Go to that Apple iTunes, type some words. You can type some words. Get in there and type.
How about you want to bet I'm going to piss off the one guy who's a fan of both Sonic Unleashed and Wi-Fi, and I'm just going to get like fucking hunted down?
Do you want to send hate mail to Thomas?
Those demographics overlap.
Apple iTunes exists.
There probably is someone.
So give us some stars. Give us the 5 stars, and then you can say whatever you want. We don't care what you say to us if it's a 5-star.
Look, as long as you give us 5 stars, you can literally just say, like, get AIDS, you son of a bitch. And
we'll be like,
5
thank
stars,
you, sir,
fine.
for your support. Or ma'am.
5 stars, it's fine.
So thank you all for listening. We'll be back with another game next week. Look forward to it. And everybody, there's a train going by, so that's pretty cool. I'm sure that Mike picked it up. Everybody, we'll talk to you next time.